Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar, COVID-19 Conversations, Building Resiliency in Uncertain Times. My name is Gabby Lemon, and I'm the event specialist here at Workplace Safety North. We appreciate your attendance here today and want to let you know COVID-19 Conversations is an ongoing webinar series that features a monthly webinar from May to October on issues related to the current global pandemic. Before we get started, we want to mention a few housekeeping items. During the webinar, you may see the screen freeze up or hear static on the microphone. This is usually temporary and due to internet connection issues. We appreciate your patience and understanding with the technology. Your microphones have been muted, and we ask that you use the Q&A at the bottom of your screen for speaker questions. If you have any technical issues using the Zoom application, do let us know in the chat box and we'll do our best to help you. So to clarify, please put any commentary or technical questions in the chat box and speaker questions in the Q&A section. Resource information and a recording of today's webinar will be sent to you within one business day. Now I'd like to pass things over to host Angele Poitras, Community Engagement Specialist and Certified Psychological Health and Safety Advisor at Workplace Safety North. Welcome, Angele.
Thanks so much, Gabby, and welcome to each and every one of you. Today is our sixth and final COVID conversation in our series, and I want to thank each and every one of you for joining. I remember not so long ago we were doing our first one, and I was convinced that nobody would be joining Gabby and Meg and myself, and that Zoom would fail. Well, we've had over 1,000 of you join our series, and Zoom has only let me down once, and hopefully today won't be the second time. I'm very, very sad to see the series end. And I want to thank some people before we go on to our session today. Planning these COVID conversations is very much like planning a wedding. A lot goes on in the background to make it seem smooth and seamless. So I wanted to extend a warm thanks to Gabby Lemon and Meg Parker. They're the ones that are in the background that have made this series so very successful. So thank you very much. You made my job so much easier. So today we're going to be talking about resilience. So when we say the word resilient, each and every one of us has a definition in our mind. A formal definition is about the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties or toughness. But many of us will say that really we've learned the hard way through the school of hard knocks or listening to the stories and strategies of others. So this is what our guest today will be sharing with us. She is going to share her story so that we can be inspired and we can share these stories with others, and we can believe that resilience is transmissible and we can learn it. So as in the past, we've taken the theme of resilience and we've put it into three main themes. So the themes that we're going to be talking about today are the beginning, the pivot, and the future. So Gabby is going to put up a poll question. And it'd be great if you could answer the poll question because it'll help us to know where you're at in your resilience right now. And while you're thinking about your answers, I'd like to explain who Workplace Safety North is. We're a partner in the health and safety system of Ontario. Our vision is every worker home safe and healthy. And you'll see in the next few months, we'll be launching a mental health series, and that is talking about taking care of the neck up. We're very proud to live and work in the North, and we have communities that feed us information, much like we have done for the COVID conversations. So when you talk to us, we listen, and then we put together things like this. Our mine rescue team is recognized worldwide for their talents in keeping our mines safe, and we're also recognized as being leaders in the forestry industry. Our staff live, work, and play in the North, and we're here for the North. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Even though our COVID conversations are ending, we're all still available to help you out. So Gabby, do we have our poll? Yes, we do. Wow, so 5 is being very resilient. So 21% of us say we're very strong. 38% of us are a 4, 38% like a 3. 3% a 2, and nobody's a 1. So that's wonderful to hear. And hopefully at the end of this webinar, you'll have a little bit more to help you with your resilience and some nuggets of learning. So today, it gives me pleasure to introduce Michelle Munro. I first met Michelle many years ago when she was a United Way trainer. So Michelle has always given back to her community, and she's doing the same thing by joining us today. She was raised helping her parents with their own businesses, and she's currently the owner and head coach of Round 2 Fitness, which is a boutique-style fitness facility in Sudbury, Ontario. She's been teaching marketing and entrepreneurship since graduating from Laurentian University in 2000. She has a degree in commerce and a master's of business administration. Michelle's personal life has made her an expert at the term pivot. From widowed to remarried to separated, she has lived through grief, alcoholism, and depression. As a mom of 4 and entrepreneur, Michelle excels at managing time efficiently and coaching others to find balance in their personal and professional lives. Michelle believes in a tribe, and her clients are fiercely loyal to the vibe at her place of business. And throughout the ups and downs of the pandemic, Michelle has managed to pivot her business and is thriving in the new operating environment. In her own words, if you're not ready to change your mindset, my coaching style and attitude may not work for you. Welcome, Michelle. Hi.
Hello. Hi, everybody. That was a very nice intro, Angele. Thank you.
Oh, it was my pleasure, Michelle. So for those of you who are looking at Michelle, yes, she is in her vehicle, and she has also shared with us that some of her clients might be going by to wave. So in the real spirit of our COVID conversations, we're keeping them extremely real.
Yes, so I was told I should find a rather quiet spot, and given that my place of work is a gym, that's kind of impossible. So I decided to hide in my vehicle today, and the door is literally right there. So I would imagine at least one person will pop in.
All right. Well, thanks for making time for us, Michelle.
No
Michelle,
problem.
in the years that I've known you, I've heard you talk about your story. Now, for our viewers, would you mind giving us an overview of your story and some of the ways that you've looked at grief and anxiety and stress right in the face and how you've shown your resilience? Would you mind sharing your story with our viewers today?
Not at all. And it's a story that I've shared before, and sometimes I, after the fact, have people comment that I share the story very well, only because I've got some distance between my original story, I guess, and current life. So I can get through my story now without bursting into tears. And I would say right off the hop that it wasn't always like that. So if you currently have a story that involves grief and you can't get through it without coming to tears, then know that it's possible eventually for that to happen. So I usually start my story by saying I was widowed at 36. I would say my story probably starts much before there, with some marital difficulties leading up to becoming a widow, which is quite common in the land of the widow. My initial reaction to becoming a widow was to say, I'm way too young for this. I can fix this. I can get married and then I won't be a widow anymore. Which basically then created a situation where I'd distracted myself from the emotions of becoming a widow, from the grief. I distracted myself both with a new relationship and with many bottles of wine. And came to a very dark place for probably 2.5 to 3 years, I would say. I learned very quickly that the first year of widowhood is not the worst year. Year 2 is really quite horrible. It was all a big lie that the first year would be the hardest year. So that was a tough lesson. Eventually, it's a very long story. We could just talk about the story the whole time, and I've been told to write a book. But at the other side, the only way that the alcoholism stopped, and I feel like I cheated. So I tell people all the time that I cheated in kicking the alcoholism to the curb, because I accidentally got pregnant. I'm not sure that that's ever an accident in anybody's life, but that's what sobered me up in a hurry. And so I'm very thankful to my son for providing that reality for me. And on the other side of pregnancy, I finally came to terms with being a widow, is how I like to phrase it. So I connected with the widow community. And probably one of the biggest resilience messages that I can give you or anybody in the face of grief, and regardless of what that grief or mental health issue is, finding people that are going through the same thing is so important. Having a community and normalizing what you're feeling. So a really simple example and profound example that I found when I connected with my tribe of widows initially was that there's a lot of widows that sit and drink on their kitchen floor at the end of the day. And that was normal, felt really good. And I very much felt that I was then experiencing something that was okay, and that making it okay made it okay also to get to the other side of it. I had to stop telling the story that I was telling to myself, that I was the only person in the world going through this. And I think that self-isolation that we put ourselves in can be very detrimental and often leads to the bottom of a bottle, or 6 or 9 or 12 or however many it has. Then pulling myself out of it, connecting with the widowed community and coming to the other side of it. I often said, you know, I was sharing my fitness journey and getting back to fitness, and people would tell me how inspiring I was. And I would say, no, I'm just some drunk girl that pulled herself off the kitchen floor. And I minimized it a lot for a long time. And I don't do that anymore because I do know how hard it is.
It is. And you kind of nailed it on the head. It's okay not to be okay for a period of time. And we'll talk about that a little bit at the end of our conversation. But I want to thank you for being brave enough to share the story and sharing with our viewers that, you know what, we're all at different parts of a journey, right? But find your tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important. So you've learned through grief and stress and anxiety. So what can you say to our viewers, those who are facing grief because of COVID or an increased anxiety? What would be some words that you could share with them, or some actions that they could do based on your own personal experiences?
Okay, so a couple of things. One, and I go back to the whole widow experience because that's what I know. There's a point in time where you start to feel a little bit better, but you guilt yourself for having those feeling betters. So maybe COVID has led to the loss of family connection, or the loss of a job, or other types of secondary losses that have come along with COVID. And if you relate that to the loss of a spouse, and you get to the other side and you start to have those happy moments, you'll pull yourself back and you'll say, wait, I don't have permission to be happy yet. I can't be happy. I'm a widow. I can't be happy. I've lost my job. So I think giving yourself that permission to have those feelings of joy and enjoyment, even if it is in a little thing, is super important. The other side of that is finding some joy in things that are smaller. So when something is big and a big event creates grief, becoming a widow, living through a pandemic, whatever that situation is that has brought the grief on. I coach all the time at the gym here. Find those little gratitudes, find a little bit of joy in a sunrise or a sunset, or appreciate, going out on a walk and just getting some fresh air. I had a depressive episode in my third year of university where I came home early from school, and my therapist used to tell me, don't try to get off the couch and do 2 hours of homework. Just get off the couch and go for a walk around the block. So taking those little small steps is super important. So that's just with respect to the grief. With respect to anxiety and stress type factors, my biggest thing with that is that you have to learn those coping skills outside of a stressful situation. So if going out in public is giving you anxiety, you need to learn those anxiety coping skills at home outside of the stressful situation before you try to apply it in a stressful situation. So those feelings of anxiety, and if we get into the psychology of it, fight or flight type responses, and your heart rate increases and all of that kind of stuff. If you throw yourself into that situation and try to tell yourself to breathe, and your body goes, boy, I've never done this breathing thing before, it's not going to know what to do in the stressful situation. So early morning meditations, breathing exercises, that kind of stuff in non-stressful situations to teach yourself how to do it. Then when you ask your body to do it in a stressful situation, your body's going to go, oh yeah, I know how to do this. I got this. So that is super important, but really, really hard to convince people of.
Yeah.
But yet if I tell them to do 100 squats so that they can get their arse stronger, they'll do that. But tell them to breathe 100 times to get their mind stronger, and it's like pulling teeth.
Well, in our last COVID conversation, Irene Caulfield-Cook, who's been counseling people for over 30 years, taught us about the breathing. And she said, close your eyes, picture your favorite flower, inhale the fragrance, and then picture a birthday cake and you're blowing out the candles. So it helped us to learn how to breathe. And she said the second added benefit to it is traditionally birthday cakes, unless you're old like me, and flowers make you feel happy, right? I don't know how 56 candles is going to make you happy, but maybe 29 would. But and she also said, be kind to yourself. And if you've never practiced mindfulness or meditation, don't expect to be doing it while you're in periods of high stress and anxiety. You can dabble in it, like you said, but don't go full head on into learning meditation if you're already struggling, right? So I think you said that. So do you still face moments of anxiety or stress?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I don't think anybody especially these days, lives a stress-free life. I think that the most important thing is starting to learn what your own body cues and signals are. And the other, a couple of things with that. So I'll talk about my specific tells. So I've learned a lot about my tells. Both from a behavior perspective, but also from a body awareness perspective. So I'm also a yogi. I have my yoga teacher certification, and I think that makes me pretty unique in the fitness industry as far as I lift heavy things and do lots of yoga at the same time. But the whole body awareness part that comes with yoga is super important and helpful to then know what your body is telling you in a stressful situation, and that your body is in need of further attention. So I know when I get out of bed in the morning where I'm at physically, and what my body needs throughout the day. And when I get up in the morning, I know if I'm having a hard workout or an easy workout during the day, or a slow, steady kind of thing. And that's years of practice. And I think we all should be able to know our bodies like that and know what our body needs. But that takes a lot of going in, the mindfulness part, a lot of going inside and assessing that. Behavior wise, and I'm sure there's many people that can relate to this. So in the depths of my grief and anxiety, and kind of depressive alcoholic state, the first thing that I would do would be delay getting out of bed in the morning. So if I was starting to press the snooze button multiple times, and then I would press the snooze, if I don't get up, I don't have to face my day. Or if I take an extra long shower, so that's where it usually started, right? If I take an extra long shower and I don't get out of the shower, if I don't get out of the shower, I don't have to do the things. But when I know it's really bad is when I won't go to bed at night. Because if I stay up late, and I don't go to bed, then I don't have to face the next day. And that's when I know that my stress and anxiety is starting to build, because I'm not wanting to face things. So I know when it's happening, and I have like a plan in place of what I do to get myself back in line, figure out what the stress is, who do I talk to, who's my venting session, what do I need to plan, how do I get control of. Typically for me now, it's overwhelm as opposed to grief type aspects, or stress over things that I can't control. So we're in this constant state of threat, if you will, as a gym, of being closed, so that I have 4 very hungry mouths to feed, so that is a high stress situation for me. It's my livelihood, it feeds my kids, it pays my mortgage. So the threat of closure is very real, and I deal with that stress on a daily basis by making sure that I'm taking enough care of myself physically so that I can take care of all of the things that need to be done in a day. And then recognizing that what is within my control and what is not. So I can't control if the government decides to close me. I can control what my reaction is if there is a closure, and that's where that whole pivot part comes in, but I won't, I'll let you ask me about that.
Well, you could do, like I was just reading the news before we went on the conversation, and Good Life asks its clients to lobby the government to keep them open. So maybe you could get a copy of that letter if you ever get closed, and you could just send it out to your clients and they could just sign it and send it to Mr. Ford. So I'll get you a copy of that letter just in case you need it. But it's interesting because I think each of us can reach back into our past to learn lessons that we can apply now during COVID. Because I was just having a conversation with a colleague that I haven't seen very much through COVID. We're predominantly working at home. And we were talking about, we're all at different parts of the journey with COVID. Some people are still really consumed with grief. Say somebody who's lost a family member, or somebody who can't visit family members. They feel isolated from their family and friends. So when I look back and I think of periods of turbulence like you have shared with us, those are really the nuggets of learning, right? Do you find yourself reaching back to those days and saying, you know, these were the lessons I learned and now I can apply them today in this situation?
Absolutely. Not only in this situation, but in other situations that come up in my life. So my oldest daughter struggled a lot with her mental health throughout the stages, different phases of COVID, and she's currently in a treatment program in Guelph. And there was an initial part of that where, you know, I got a lot of comments saying, wow, you're doing really well. And I said, yeah, because I feel like I'm in the same project management stage that I was in for my husband's funeral. You just go into project management stage and you deal with the emotions after the fact. Now, the main difference being I knew that and I still know that I have to deal with the emotions around my daughter's mental health issues, because as a mom, there's going to be some emotions around that. But I knew that that particular point in time of getting things done was not the time to deal with the emotions. So let's deal with the things that need to be dealt with, but then don't go into distraction mode, right? Don't go into that, I'm just gonna keep busy and never have the time to, there's a phrase that we coin in Widowland, that would be Widowland, called, we say, you have to feel the feels. You have to give yourself the downtime to feel the feels. And if you don't, then you just get into like busy life mode, and you never let those emotions come to the surface and actually feel them. And if you just keep pushing them down, then eventually they will catch up with you. So there's that. But then something I will often say to people, and often when people say, wow, like you're holding up really well. Like I had 2 floods in the first 3 months of operation at my gym, and they were like, wow, like this has to be really stressful for you. You're doing really well. And my comment is always, this is not the worst day of my life. I have experienced the worst day of my life, and this is not it. So I know I'm going to get to the other side of whatever this stress is, and I'm going to be fine, because I've experienced far worse stress. And this is just a little bump in the road, really.
Right.
Yeah. So those are my 2 big kind of
like
go-tos.
Feel the feels. That's pretty profound. I've written it down. And when you talked about being in project management mode, I thought, wow, that's a brilliant piece of advice to give us. So don't overwhelm yourself with everything. Look at it as a project and take one bite at a time, right? Like I think that's a great way to look at things, right? In that, because most of us can manage projects. It's when we're looking at the whole picture that it just seems so overwhelming, right? And that's kind of a segue into now where we're going to talk about, you know, the pivot. It seems to be, you know, the word that we're all hearing. I think the first time I heard it was Michelle Obama. I think she used the word pivot, and
Oh,
then
okay.
yeah, and then now it
Yeah.
seems that it's owned by COVID. I'm not sure when the flip happened. But Michelle,
Mhm.
you said the moment that you learned when your pivot first happened, it was because you were pregnant with your son. Now, how do you tell us right now, for those of us who are suffering maybe, you know, advanced anxiety or higher levels of stress during COVID, how do we get, like, how do we pivot? How do we
So
change?
for crying out loud,
I
don't
am
get
not getting
pregnant.
pregnant. I am not getting pregnant. So please don't use that as the advice that you're giving.
100%. So the question is, how do you know when to pivot, right?
And how do you pivot?
I
And
would
how do you
say,
say this is our new normal? We've got to get on this train. I can't live in the world that was 9 months ago. I have to learn how to do it.
yeah. So I think that the big message is when it's not, the current state is not working for you. There's something that is, you're getting feedback from the world around you, whether that is your own day-to-day life and your own internal feedback from yourself, or feedback from your kids, or feedback from your coworkers, that you're not in that kind of functional norm, and then you need to be able to pick yourself up and figure out what the next step is. Now, I get asked that question a lot. So I get the question, how did you get up off the kitchen floor? And unfortunately, my own personal answer to that is, well, I got pregnant. So that's not a good answer. Now, the other side of it, so when I was done with pregnancy, and even though I was breastfeeding, I was still drinking more than I should have been, and I was not functioning well, and my state of being was not in alignment with what I thought I should be.
Okay.
And the only way that I was able to make that shift and pivot was with that connection with my fellow widows. Finding somebody, whether that be a therapist or somebody in a similar situation to you, making those connections to let you know that there is another way. So the story that I told myself, there's nobody else who's a suicide widow, who has 3 kids from marriage 1, has remarried and had another child, and was 36 when it all happened. Nobody's lived that. Nobody gets it. Nobody's story is like mine. And then I met a woman who had 3 kids from her first marriage, had remarried her husband's brother, had another child with him, and had her shit together. And I was like, oh, there went every excuse that I had. So that's when I started to be able to, so I really don't think that anybody should have to do this alone. I don't think that trying to do it alone, and the message as a society that we give people when they're struggling mental health wise is get it together, right? Pick yourself up and do the things. But sometimes you're not able to pick yourself up and do the things without help. So knowing, if you can't find my Mari, that's the name of the woman who had my same situation, if you can't find someone like that, finding a good therapist or a good psychologist who can help you feel that there are normal elements to what you're going through, and perhaps even relying on medication for a while until you get out of the other side of whatever dark spot you're in. If we, have something wrong with our thyroid, it's okay to take medication to fix it. But if there's something wrong with our brain, we somehow think that it's not okay to take medication to fix it. And I'm very fortunate to have clients who work in in psychiatry and work in that field, and we have these conversations all the time where, there's so much misconception around what mental health is. And I do feel that there are a lot of things that we can do on our own, but sometimes we need a bump to get there. And if you need to reach out for help to get over that bump, then this is okay. And then you start doing all of the things. Then you start doing the exercise and doing the healthy eating and getting the fresh air and, reciting all the mantras and putting Post-it notes on your mirrors. But sometimes you need help to get there, and that's okay. And I think, it's like needing a cast to fix a broken leg and then learning to walk again. It's the same thing.
That's a brilliant way to put it, right? Because there is still that stigma attached to it. One of our viewers said, listen to your body's whispers before it screams. And when I read that, I was recalling our conversation the other day that I was taken aback by it. And you said, sometimes your clients come in and they don't need a hard workout and you're not going to give them one.
Oh, no.
So can you share a little bit? Because I thought that was pretty profound. I thought you would have answered differently. So it really struck me. So maybe you can share that with our viewers.
Yeah. And I think that's probably, so here's where I toot my own horn, right? I think that's what makes me unique in the industry is that if you come to me, I have clients all the time that come to me and say, I need you to beat me up. And I, because of my yoga training, can feel whether that is coming from a good place or coming from a bad place. So do you need me to beat you up because you feel horrible about what you ate for dinner last night and you're on this like downward spiral? Or do you need me to beat you up because you really are feeling strong today and you want to test yourself and see how far you can push your body? This is a completely different beast. So I get to know my clients. I have over 100 clients, but I know them all by name. I know all of their stories. We get very personal with each other very quickly. And they walk in, and I know if they need easy, steady pace still. Maybe we still lift heavy things, but maybe it's a slow, steady pace instead of a, puddle on the floor kind of pace. I literally just had a client like that this morning. She's come in many times and said, okay, I need you to kick my arse all over the gym. And some days that's what I give her. But today I said, okay, we need slow, steady today, right? And she said, yep. That's what I need today. She, had just quit her job and was feeling emotionally low. If you're feeling emotionally low, to introduce physical stress in a really intense way doesn't make sense. So I think this is a really huge misconception. Exercise is stress. It does not matter to your body if it's good stress or bad stress. It's stress, period. The reaction that your body gets from exercise is fight or flight, the same way as though I'm threatening your life as a tiger and you're a caveman in a, hiding. It's the exact same stress. So if you're already stressed out, for me to introduce even more stress to you doesn't make any sense. I would be anti-helping. And my whole coaching principle is to be helpful, not anti-helping.
One of our viewers says, once I figured out my body, it was like winning the lottery.
Oh, yeah.
That's
absolutely.
a brilliant statement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how do you maintain these profound changes that you've made in your life? Because that's one of the strategies that we all seek, right? How do we maintain? Once we've done this pivot, how do we maintain it so that we're building our resiliency and moving forward? Like, how did you maintain it?
Yeah, so I think that probably the biggest, well, I think I've said this way too many times because I've said biggest misconception far too many times, but yet another misconception about mindset and resiliency in general is that once you've done the work, you don't need to do the work anymore. So bring that back to physical activity. Once you have, accomplished a physical goal like being able to squat your own body weight. This is a thing that a lot of people want to do. Fun fact, it's useless. But hey, if you wanted to squat your own body weight, I could get you there. So once you get there, if you stop doing it, you no longer can do it.
Okay.
But for some reason, we think, okay, I'm going to meditate for 2 weeks, and I'm going to do all of the mindfulness things, and I'm going to get all of my mindset stuff in order, and then I'm good.
Yep.
But if you stop doing it, guess what happens?
Right.
You're no longer good at it. The same way that you would no longer be good at squatting your own body weight. So, you know, I had a client once drop out of my programming and said, so I do a lot of mom and me stuff, and she said, I can fit into my pre-pregnancy jeans, so I'm done. And I went, okay, bye-bye. See you in a couple months when those jeans don't fit anymore. Yeah, she's back a couple months later, jeans don't fit anymore. If you stop doing the things, then it's that classic use it or lose it kind of scenario, and it applies to mindset too. So how do I maintain? I know that I still have to do the things. And I still have to do my meditation. Now, when I did my yoga certification, I came up with this little analogy or metaphor. Maybe somebody that knows English stuff can tell me which one it is.
Yeah, you're not a professor of language, right? No.
No, definitely not. I was going to do an English degree, fun fact. So I likened it to a bucket. And if your mindset or your mental health is a bucket, if you start with an empty bucket and you fill that bucket up, it takes a time and effort to fill that bucket up. And for some people, that takes more time, more effort, and perhaps some assistance with medication or therapy or whatever to get that bucket to fill up. Once it's full, it doesn't drain super quickly. But you do have to, there is like a slow drip coming out. So you don't have to put in as much effort to keep it full on an ongoing basis, but you do have to do something. So initially, you know, we did 14 days straight of morning pages, and we did nightly journaling, and it was like constant things that you had to do all of the time to see the benefit and reap the reward. Now I might journal a couple times a week, and it's okay. And I'm also really good at saying, okay, this week I need to do some journaling, and I got to get at least 3 days of meditation in, because I'm feeling, you start to know, okay, I skipped a meditation or two, and now I can't focus anymore, and my brain's like jumping all over the place. So I better add the meditation back. And you get to know what you need to keep that bucket full on an ongoing basis, or at least not let it get below half. Because if it gets below half, then you're probably going to need a timeout, like a little toddler throwing a temper tantrum.
You're a professor at Laurentian University, and I'm going to assume that you do have younger people in your classes. Are you sharing any resilience tactics with them?
What I do most with them is check in. So at the beginning of class and at the end of class, and a lot of similar things that I do with my clients, right? I read their faces. So one, I insist that their cameras are on. You know, I just said to one of my students the other day, because I've seen this individual a few times now. We're a few weeks into the class, and he's taking both of my classes. So sometimes I see him twice a day on Tuesdays. And I said, dude, you look really tired. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you stressed? How can I help? Because I think as profs, we don't do that enough, particularly at the university level. And, you know, given that I have a daughter that was heading into university and just like had a total mental breakdown, I'm a little sensitive to that. So I do a little check-in with them at the beginning of class. How's everybody doing? Are we getting enough sleep? Are you feeling like things are stressing you out? If you need to reach out, I'm here. I might not be able to solve the problem, but I can at least point you in the right direction.
You know, and that is extremely good advice too, because we can be doing the same to the people around us, right? Family members, the people we work with, some of our family members, we can be doing that check-in and just asking them, hey, how are you doing? You know,
Mhm.
you may not even
Yeah.
notice anything, but just taking that extra moment and asking the people around you, how are you doing? Because I know it's made a world of difference in our work organization when we've asked the question. People see, like, say, hey, you see me. Thank you.
So a couple of things with that, though. One, as individuals, I think we need to start telling the truth when people ask us how we're doing.
Yeah.
So if I ask you, Angele, how are you doing? You're going to say, fine, I'm good, I'm fine. After my first husband died, I said fine a lot. And I walked into, so this might get me emotional. I walked into the pool one day. My kids are swimmers, and there was a mom on the pool deck, and she looked at me and she said, "How are you?" And I knew that she actually wanted to know. So one, if you're going to ask the question, mean it. Two, if you're going to answer the question, tell the truth. And I knew just by the way she was like looking at me that she actually wanted to know how I was. And I knew that I couldn't lie to her because I knew that she saw it. She knew me, she knew the situation. She genuinely, you could tell by the tone of her voice that she actually cared and that she wanted a real response. So yeah, as individuals, I think we often just lie when people ask us, how are you? And I know, I just, when I went inside today, before our talk started and snuck in to go to the bathroom, one of my clients, half naked in the bathroom, asked me how I was doing. And I said, I'm managing. I'm getting things done. I'm taking time to like sit quietly and feel the feels, and make the adjustments that I need to with my oldest away. And, I was honest about it. And I knew that she was actually asking because she cares and wants to know how I'm doing. These people care about me as their coach, not just as their friend. So it was, yeah.
So, I look at you, Michelle, and the song that runs through my mind is, the future's so bright, I've got to wear shades. Like, you just exude energy while you're sitting in your car, even over Zoom. Like, so thank you. Just the positive energy is a real lift, I'm sure, for not just myself, but others. Can you share why did you call your business Round 2? Is there a story behind that? We look to the future?
Yes, there is. And I guess in theory it should be called Round 3 now, since, as you said in my introduction, I'm now separated from my second husband. But I have 3 kids from marriage 1, and my third child was 7 when I was pregnant with my 4th. So I got a lot of people saying, wow, big gap. And my reply became, he's round 2.
Oh.
So I was referring to it being a round 2 pregnancy. And, people get a little weird when you say, well, my first husband died by suicide and this is my second marriage and I'm having another baby, he didn't have one. People get a little like, whoa, what did you just say? When that just like rolls off your tongue. So you get tired of having to explain it. So I just would say, yeah, he's round 2. And at the time I was teaching at Laurentian more full-time. There was contract issues and I ended up shifting my career to what I now call my Round 2 career. So I teach at Laurentian just part-time now. Now it is just fun for me to teach. And the gym is my full-time career. So that's my Round 2 career. And then for a while it was my Round 2 relationship. And there's definitely post-loss, Round 2 friendships. So secondary losses of friendships when you experience grief is quite common. Right. So if you're noticing a shift in your friends in your COVID grief situation, this is normal and this is okay. Some of those friends I have reconnected with, some of them I have not, and I don't think I ever will, and that is also okay, and I've grieved that, and you move on. So Round 2 baby, Round 2 career, Round 2 friendships. It was Round 2.
Okay,
and now
We've got to give a name to this young fellow because you've talked about him quite a bit. What is his name, your son?
My little guy?
Yeah.
Oh, he's Emilio.
Emilio. So that if we ever do meet him, we don't call him round two. We call him by his given name, Emilio, because it's a lovely name. So,
well, sometimes on social media, I post, it's Mr. Round 2. Mr. Round 2 was in the house
Mr.
today.
Round 2. You talk a lot about tribes. So what can you suggest to our viewers and myself today about if we were looking to go out after this call and find ourselves a tribe, what should it look like?
People that build you up. So if I could like capture it in one statement.
Yeah.
The tribe that you connect with, the people that you have around you, they need to be your biggest cheerleaders and you need to be theirs. So, you know, as a widowed tribe, when I first connected with my widow folks, we were all helping each other out and building each other up. My crew here at the gym, I encourage them every block to introduce themselves to each other, to not only welcome newbies in to the tribe, but also so that people find, even if it's just one thing that connects them on their fit journey, that they have people who are at that common place, whatever that common place is, so that you don't feel that you're fighting that battle alone, whatever that battle is. And that it could be as simple as, sometimes I have people that connect over the fact that they can't get enough water in a day. Okay, then you have your little water tribe. But they help in that lifting you up process. And if that's a fitness tribe or a widow tribe or a grief tribe, whatever that tribe may be, and don't think that you need to have just one tribe. You know, I have my fit family tribe and I still have my widow tribe, and I connect with both when I need to, and depending on what I need. And even if there's space and distance and time that goes by, I know I can always go back.
Is it okay to kick people out of your tribe?
Oh my God, I fire people all the time. It is 100% okay to kick people out of your tribe.
Because that's hard,
absolutely,
right? Once you build a tribe and then you think, well, some tribe members may not be working for you. So I think that's important that we give ourselves permission, right? To
absolutely.
let some of our tribe go.
The fear of that comes from, like, go back to caveman times, right? If you didn't have a tribe, you were either going to starve or die. So we have this fear factor, not only of removing it. So here's the other side of that, though, Angele. Don't be afraid to remove yourself from a tribe that's no longer serving you, right? So it's not just, so maybe it's not that you need to kick people out of your tribe, because really a tribe doesn't have, like, I mean, yeah, I own my tribe because I own the space, but they would be really offended by that. I'm sure I'm going to get lynched once they watch this video. But you can remove yourself from a tribe and say, okay, you know what? This tribe isn't serving me anymore.
Right.
And I'm going to, so I can talk about the widow community a little bit. I'm part of probably, I want to say, half a dozen different widow boards. And I often get people that come to me and say, you know, I know somebody who just became a widow. Can you help them connect with somebody? And I have a little brief conversation with them because I know what the vibe is in each of those boards. So there's like the young widows who are a little racy and post half nude pictures on Thursdays. And that's probably not the best spot for a young, maybe 50-year-old widow, but maybe it's a good spot for somebody who's 29 and widowed and 6 months or a year into the process. So, you know, you got to feel out what those tribes are and when it's okay to pull back from that tribe.
You know, interestingly enough, I've looked at your Facebook page, and for those of you who haven't looked at Michelle's Facebook page, I just want to share with you, when I saw you eating ice cream and cookies, I clapped my heels. So, because it's not always about being perfect, right? You seem to have a really good balance. So as we're nearing the end of our conversation, if you have questions, please ask Gabby or put them in the Q&A, and we'll be happy to talk about them in the last 9 minutes or so. But how do we maintain this balance? How do we have the days that we have the cookies and ice cream and we don't work out and we don't practice meditation? How do we be kind to ourselves, and how do we go back to that balance?
So there's a key word that you didn't put in there that I think is key, and it's forgiveness. So I think what happens far too often is on those days that you have the ice cream and cookies and you don't work out, you beat yourself up for doing so, particularly. So, I despise talking about weight loss, but if weight loss is what your key focus is, and you have an ice cream cookie and no workout day, your default is going to be to beat yourself up. And that's just going to lead to a spiral. So balance to me is about forgiving yourself, one. And so my big turning point, fitness-wise, once for the second time, not pregnant, the other side of pregnancy, had to pick myself up off the kitchen floor, was accepting myself exactly where I was at. So this is the self-love chat. So
somebody
the day that I started
love myself first. One of our viewers just put that,
right?
Love myself first. Yep.
Yeah, you have to. And I actually don't think that you have the capacity to love somebody else unless you do love yourself, but that's like another lecture for another day. The day that I started losing weight was the day I walked myself into my first experience in a plus size store. So I had been fit most of my life, some ups and downs with pregnancies and stuff, but I had never purchased clothing in a plus size store. And I needed something to wear for my daughter's grade 8 graduation, I think. And I literally had nothing that I would, besides maternity clothes, that I would put on and feel comfortable in. So I went to Additional 14 or something. It used to be in the, it's closed now. Anyways, I went there and I let the lady put me in something that fit and it looked good. And I accepted my body for exactly where it was and said, okay, this is where I am. And I'm going to buy clothes that fit me and I'm going to love myself where I am now. And that's like rule number one when you walk in the door here. And it's why Jen Sincero's Badass book is our Bible here at the gym. At the end, so spoiler alert, in Jen's book, at the end of every chapter, she has a self-love message. So one of her things is love yourself because it is the holy grail of happiness. And I think that message is the exact same for balance. You can't find that balance if there isn't self-love.
Somebody said that they're finding that their tribe has dispersed during COVID. And she's saying that, you know, we saw such connection at the beginning and now I feel like we're all hunkered down. Is anybody else feeling that? And there's been a couple of comments after. So how do we get back that camaraderie and that tribe connection that obviously worked very well for you and I'm sure other people? How do we do that in today's world?
Hold on. So somebody asked, what's Jen's last name? Jen Sincero. We can put it somewhere, can we? Can you guys put that book somewhere for people?
Yeah, we can add it into resources.
So I think, okay, cool. So I think that the challenge with that is starting to find new ways for that connection, one, and also just starting to accept the differences in life. So by that I mean things have changed, and I think that we are running still, like we're running in this little circle of still thinking that things will go back, and they may not go back. So can we accept things the way that they are, even in a modified way, and be creative about finding new ways for that connection? And whether that's, you know, we used to go for coffee every week, but, you know, now we can't even get a table because the tables are all taken, to, you know, having Zoom coffee dates, or doing it outside somewhere, or going for a walk instead, finding those new things to do instead of just saying, well, we can't do that, so therefore we can't do anything.
Right.
And I think that that's part of the acceptance of where we're at as a society, as opposed to trying to, I think there's quite a lot of trying to fight against the things. There's a certain amount of that, I think, that has to happen, and we can talk about that letter you mentioned later, and, you know, discrepancies about what can and can't open and all of that kind of stuff. But from a socialization perspective, I think we have to figure out how do we still maintain that connection, and accept that sometimes the life story of somebody might have changed. So I've had a huge shift in the class that's working out right now is my lunch crew. And I would say I think there's only 4 of the original 17 or 18 people that were at the lunch class are still here. Not for lack of commitment to exercise, but because their work life has changed. So they used to come because work was close. Well, what if work is no longer close? If they're working from home, they may be at a completely different location and they can't get here during their lunch hour. So either you become an online person or you find a new place. And does that mean that my connection with them has to change? Not necessarily. And they can still look to me for inspiration, and we can still have that connection in that way. But maybe they, you know, I have a client who now goes to the basement. Hi, the basement. This is okay with me. I don't see that as a bad thing. You know, she lives in New Sudbury, and she used to work across the street from me. She can no longer get here. I'd rather her be at the basement than doing nothing at all. And that, you know, that's just the way things are. So we maintain connection in other ways. That doesn't make it our relationship end. So yeah, I think that's the main thing, is trying to accept and find new ways.
Well, Michelle, I knew that our time together was just going to fly by. We've been talking for 56 minutes, so we're already at the end. And I know when we first started chatting, we said, oh my goodness, are we going to be able to manage to fill an hour? Well, we did an exceptional job, or you did an exceptional job. So I really want to thank you for joining us today. Like I said, your energy level is so high that I can feel it through the Zoom, and that's hard to do. So thank you for that. I want to thank you for being brave, and I want you to thank you for being funny, and I want to especially thank you for letting me know it's okay to have cookies and ice cream sometimes. That's a big nugget for me, and you know, to feel the feels and listen to your body. And you know, the comments are coming back. Really, thank you so much. It's been fabulous. So we end each and every conversation, right? And for you, you get to close off our COVID conversation series. And as always, you have the final word. And all I'd like to say to the viewers is, remember, be kind to yourself and others. And Michelle, you have the floor, and you can leave us with your words of wisdom. Once again, thanks so much, Michelle.
So I'm gonna modify a quote from the book that I just referred to by Jen Sincero, because they told me that I'm not allowed to swear, so that I've made it through this entire hour without dropping an F-bomb is amazing. So in Jen Sincero's book, one of the things that she says is, it's not your fault if you're messed up. It is your fault if you stay messed up. And one of the things that I draw from that in our current pandemic life is that this whole thing that's going on is not our fault. We can't control that. What we can control is how we react to it and how we behave in this situation. And I use that behave word very lightly. So try to find some ways that you can embrace what these changes mean, and still have that happy, productive life that was or did exist pre-COVID. None of this is our fault, but it is our fault if we stay in the depths of the grief that is consuming the society or outside world. So stay happy, stay kind, take control. And one of the things that we say around here often is own it. So you got to own your problems and own your life.
Thank you, Michelle. Bye, everyone.